The Bite Me podcast is coming right up, and it is brought to you every week right here on YouTube by Freedom Boats. It is the best shallow running boat on the water, and there is a model perfect for you. The Chiquita 14, the Eagle 16, the Patriot 18, the Commander 21, the beautiful Warrior like I have 23, or the big boy that runs so shallow, the General 26. Chet Moore and Pooty can customize it however you'd like, and there's a dealer near you, whether it's the Boatyard in Kemah or dealerships in San Antonio, Beaumont, Corpus Christi, Port O'Connor, Houston, and Aransas Pass. Freedom Boats or freedomboatsusa.com. Welcome into the Bite Me podcast, man. It is happening. It is Tuesday. Nobody forgot it was Tuesday, although maybe Caleb forgot. We'll find out here pretty soon. But happy to have you guys join us here on the podcast. We are excited. We got a lot of stuff to cover, a lot of fishing topics. But man, let's do a couple little updates on just life in general with our friends, our captains. And I'm going to start out with Captain Scott, who, by the way, is literally on his boat doing this podcast. Now, it's in the marina, it's in the dock, but he is literally on his boat doing this podcast. These guys go to great lengths to make sure we get this podcast done every week. Obviously, Dean literally just came off the water as well and hopped into podcast mode, so we appreciate that. But we left last week's podcast, Scott. You were telling us how obviously a lot of our listeners know. For those who don't, after the July 4th floods in the Hill Country, Scott went down to Center Point and got to work. Not asked, not just kind of felt the urge to get it done and had to do something. And then they had a little bit of a thank you. Was it at the Friday night football game, huh? Friday Night Lights. What happened? What was that like?
Yes, sir. They had us all out on the field before the kickoff and gave us a big thank you and presented some stuff to some different guys that were involved in it. And Harry Holt, the fire chief's brother, he had just stepped in. It had nothing to do with the fire department or anything. He stepped in and ran all of the 30,000 volunteers that signed up over the 3 weeks.
Man.
And they got a real nice, they had found the flag because the fire station got flooded as well.
Yeah.
Everything washed out. And the flag from the fire station was found downstream, and they took that and put it in a flag case in a shadow box, and along with some other stuff. It was really cool. It was good to see everybody on different terms.
Wearing their cowboy hats and their pressed jeans and all that stuff.
Yeah, everybody was having a good time out there. And then the boys won, and
the Pirates won.
Yeah, the Pirates won, and then and Connor is Harry's son. He played his butt off on that game. Took a little concussion at the end, but he was all right. But,
just a little concussion.
little minor concussion. But it kind of rung his bell a little bit there. But he was playing his butt off, and he's a good kid. He helped a lot during the flood, and it was just really good to see all these guys get back together and be able to chat and talk and not be stressed out with the flood stuff,
And we forget those kids lost friends, lost siblings, were, as you said, were involved themselves in rehabbing the place and rescue and everything. So the kids on the field, I mean, they had to have, I don't know if it was a heavy heart or an inspired heart or whatever, but it had to be pretty heartrending for them.
Yeah, they were all happy to see us too, and a lot of hugs, a lot of handshakes. It was really very cool deal.
Yeah, and of course there's still a lot going on down there, and there's a lot of this. We got a message from our friend John just today, so I want to mention this since we were talking about it. It's the Taste of the Coast fundraiser, and it's going to benefit Kirk County Flood Relief Fund at the Community Foundation of the Texas Hill Country. There's going to be Texas farmed oysters, which we like. Chef prepared bites, beer, wine, silent auction, boiled shrimp, ceviche, live music, and it's going to be Saturday, September 14th, the Saturday before the feeding frenzy for anybody in the Hill Country or wants to go down there, 1 to 5 p.m. at the Fulton County Convention Center, and you can search John Blaha to get more information on that, but or just search what I just said. But no, that was really, really cool. I wanted to mention that because we did kind of leave the tease out there last week, at the end of the show. So you get your pressed jeans on too. I was in a pressed jeans mode for about 2 years.
I didn't have pressed jeans. I did have jeans on. First time I wore jeans in a while.
Was that the urban cowboy era?
That's exactly what it was. 100%. It was during the Urban Cowboy. Me and millions of other people. Caleb McCumber joins us now. But before we get to Caleb, got to get Dean's thoughts on they're coming after you, Dean. Those manatees are in your backyard.
At the ferry landing in Port Aransas. I seen
They're
that.
in your backyard.
And it's funny because that very day I had been fishing along the ship channel, along the Spoil Islands, and then I saw that it was going across the news, and I was like, whoa, rewind. I was like, am I hearing I thought that was like some stock footage or something that they were rolling on there.
Nope.
But no, man. I was like about a mile from where I was fishing.
For those who don't listen to every podcast, which, by the way, you can go back and listen to every single podcast that we've ever done for, is it 6 or 7 years, Scott? I always forget. But anyway, on Podbean. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcast, whether it's Podbean or iTunes or Spotify or wherever. But refresh our memories. And I know Scott probably was going to want to jump in here at some point because you were involved at some level. But why are you terrified, or why do you hate manatees, Dean?
Hate is a strong word.
But you're going to use it.
It was just back in the days that we were going to Florida kayak fishing pretty consistently. For whatever unfortunate reason, I was accosted by manatees at every turn. If it was just bad luck, bad timing, bad coincidence.
Accosted. I can just see them like having their way with you. Like
it was everything but.
I was touched inappropriately.
No, incidental contact in a kayak with a manatee is frightening. It's frightening. I mean, and yeah. So the fact that they're out here in the neighborhood is just wow. It's alarming.
Well, John Parkoff brings up a good point. I mean, it's not like we're gonna. Well, first of all, it's illegal to do anything with the manatees, but they are eating a lot of seagrass now, man. They're coming down here. Apparently, they're making a habit of it.
And I don't know if you could technically call them invasive. We're at the very northern edge of their range. So they do frequent the area, you know. It's not like they were picked up in Venezuela and brought over here and then dropped off.
Scott, what was your perspective? How come they didn't accost you, Scott?
I don't know. They just like Dean for some reason. He had, kind of cute.
He was laughing. He was laughing so loud they were scared and ran away from him.
Go ahead, Caleb.
I feel like at some point you start looking for signs of manatees before you paddle around the corner. That's just me.
No, I was petrified.
Oh, no, he was looking all the time. All the time.
It was hard to fish. But yeah, so there's history there, and it's grown to legendary status. And then here they are. They are again.
Caleb, what's happening, man? You joined us just a tad bit late, but that's okay.
Yes, sports ball stuff going on. Today's first football game for Cade and them. We've been busy trying to get food up to the school and all those kind of things.
You got your Needville shirt on?
It's Needville-ish. It's the right color.
Yeah. How about that? And he is playing. Is it freshman?
8th grade.
8th grade. Okay, 8th grade. All right, let's get rolling on this podcast here, man, because there is a lot to cover. And this time I'm going to start with Dean, because you talk about FOMO, man. I know I couldn't fish Sunday. We had to get back, and then I saw your post today. Upper slot, it's happening. What's the deal? But especially with the warm water, and it's still happening,
man. And so interesting the way this week has played out. Had some really tough days looking for fish up until Saturday, Sunday. It was just tough. And then all of a sudden we had this influx of tide, crazy high tide, and the water temperature is still hot. But as this tide pushed in, and today it was like You know, our normal tide, if you look at the scale in Redfish Bay, 1.0, 1.1, 1.2 is a good high tide. This morning it was at 1.87, almost 1.9. So a huge amount of water came in, and just big schools of big reds have invaded the flats with that tide. I mean, they could not have been there. They weren't there. I mean, we were searching and hitting everywhere at the end of last week, and there were a lot of tough days. I mean, it was respectable, but nothing fast and furious. And then starting on Sunday morning, it's just been crazy.
Mm-hmm. Caleb, how you been doing? By the way, in case you didn't notice, we're doing where the captains were, how they did, and what you noticed. You been noticing anything changing with the tides and such?
Man, the tide is actually kind of low in Matagorda, but the intercoastals and the creeks and tributaries are clearing up. So that's I'm gonna fish deeper water while it's hot. If it doesn't lay down and I can't go out to the surf, I'm gonna fish deeper water. And we caught a bunch of little trout this weekend. Me and Cade and Adam just screwing around, but the water's starting to look good to do that August September sight casting that I like to do. So that's what I've seen.
Scott, you are literally still on the water right now, or at least above it in the marina. That to me is a good sign. If you couldn't even make the podcast, because I know you always try until you had and stay on your boat to do the podcast, that's probably a good sign. What were you saying?
I was looking at jetty rocks at 258.
and then hauled ass. And then hauled ass.
And we had baby tarpon around the rocks, big tarpon between the rocks. We had kingfish jumping, skying out of the water today. Jacks everywhere. It was just a good old day of typical beachfront jetty fishing. The blue water came in this morning with that strong incoming Dean's talking about. Had it yesterday and today. At the jetties, you could see down 10 feet. I mean, it was just beautiful. Went out on the beachfront. I spent more time the last 2 days looking at my radar trying to dodge these damn storms than I have anything else. They're just little pop-up showers. They're spitting out little water spouts and not much lightning in them, just every now and then. But we've spent more time. It hadn't been where you want to fish. It's where you can fish.
Yeah.
We're just running from them. Yesterday, I ran way south to get around some, then had to turn around, run way north to get away from them again. But tomorrow looks a little better, and I've got some reports of some fish down the beach that I couldn't get to today. I got cut off by a storm, and I'm gonna head down that way. Lots of bait, just everything's just happening. I mean, all the bait's coming out. There's rain minnows just like crazy. Thousands of pelicans working. It's just all really good. September's always good on the beachfront.
Well, and both you and Caleb touched on something that we're going to get to a topic here in a minute called, are we in tweener mode? Caleb was talking about, if he can get out to the beachfront, and you're talking about the storms and having to adapt. So we're going to get to that specifically here in a little bit. But Dean, back to you, because we were talking this weekend and you were mentioning this is something of a phenomenon to me, and maybe you can explain it, and Scott and Caleb can hop in. But there's this one, I don't know if it's a spot, it's more of a bigger area where the redfish this time of year have consistently showed up in the afternoon. Now that it goes against everything that we normally talk about here. Scott and Caleb, start thinking about this, because I've seen that before. I remember that in Matagorda. There's a couple places that in East Matagorda that I would have that same phenomenon happen. But what is it about hot afternoon? I'm talking like after 3 p.m. and redfish there.
I mean, I had 2 trips, Sunday and Monday, where we went at 4 o'clock.
It's crazy.
We went out at 4. And so this is one of those year after year, consistently, there are 2 spots that are adjacent to flats, and in the heat of summer, and it's right at the beginning of September, we have just a strong dropping tide at the afternoon, and it goes almost so it pulls everything off of those flats. And it's got to happen in more than just these places that I'm familiar with. It's just I have consistently hit them year after year, and it's up on the flats. It's still like 1 foot of water, but it is within 20 feet of the drop off. And it's just pulling all of the fish off of those flats, all of those bait to the edge. And even the water coming off of those flats is hot. It's hotter than the deep water. Even those fish, those reds, when you grab them, when you pick them up from the water, they are hot. They feel like they are cooking. Kind of weird. But it just goes to show you, you know, we talk about things that are seasonal that you can count on every year. You know, day to day things do change, but this is one of those very consistent patterns that if you're there beginning of September and that outgoing tide, for whatever the bait fish are there, whatever's happening, they're consistently. And I'm talking about a hookup on damn near every cast. So
it's crazy. Caleb, you have any theory? And then Scott, on this, because there was a couple of spots, and I'm sure you have more than I do, but where I'm like, okay, this doesn't make sense. But is it as simple as the tide?
Man, I think we're getting to the time of the year, like Scott said, the rain minnows and all that kind of stuff are stacking up. So we're getting to a baby hatch type of year or time of year. Not. I mean, it goes from now until the end of November, where it's pretty consistent. But I mean, and hang with me here. Thoughts from the lawnmower coming in.
Yeah, man.
I've always said that every winter there's a tipping point where the deep water is as cold as the shallow water, and then it starts working the other way. And I don't know that we're not getting to the point where all the water's hot, and so there are some areas where it's the tide is bringing what little bit of cooler water we have, and they're stacking up there for those reasons as well. You know, Dean said a lot of stuff, and he basically said, "Man, I think, but I'm not real sure," and I'm right there with him. I mean, it just happens. There's a clip in one of our Angler U videos where I'm fishing with Paradosky, and there's all this stuff going on, and I'm coming up with all these reasons. And I told Charlie, I said, "Hey, we're gonna tell the camera or tell the audience why we think they're here." And so, camera rolls, and I say, "Hey, Charlie, why do you think the fish are here?" And he goes, "Why did you come to fish here?" He looks at me, and goes, "Fish have been here." All right, I mean, we're all kind of in the same boat here.
Yeah, Scott.
I think it has to do with these tides. The tide's rushing in the morning real hard and rushing out in the afternoon. I think it's just mixing all the water up. And you got decent oxygen in there. If you got decent oxygen, you got decent bait fish. No reason for them not to feed, even though it's hot, because it's hot everywhere. I mean, the beachfront's still 89, 90 degrees. The intercoastal, even with all this rain and clouds for the last few days, it was still 89 degrees at the dock. I would imagine that Caleb's kind of right on that. The deep water and the shallow water is probably all about the same.
I would tend to lean to what you're saying, Scott, just because I've always said, I think I said it a couple of weeks ago, why are there better fish in the surf in the summer when the water's just the same? Because of waves, because the oxygen is getting into that hotter water. So maybe that's it, Dean. It's a stronger tide. Have they been stronger tides?
It's just because they're there.
The tides last week were ridiculously strong. I took a video of it, and my boat's power pulled down. It looks like I'm going 20 miles an hour.
Yeah.
We've had some raging outgoing tide from noon to about, actually started a little earlier, around 11 till about 4 or 5 o'clock, and then gone. But we're coming up on the full moon of September, and I mean, if you look at it's kind of flattened out today, not as dramatic as it was a week ago. But the autumnal equinox, September 21, I mean, the moon is somewhere and the sun is somewhere, and it pulls the water.
You just start equinoxing.
The moon is somewhere.
No, it's just that time of year where things start to change. In spite of the water temperature being consistent, the days are getting shorter. The tide is starting to come up a little bit higher. My theory always was that the fish sense the hours of daylight, and that drives that, tends to, they know that the days are getting shorter. They start to feed more. They feed more longer during the day. And then, so I went out this morning and fished. And so on a super high tide, adjacent to where I was fishing on the low tide, but way up on the flats, way up on the grass. And those fish are still in that vicinity. They weren't as easy to find today, but when you found them, damn, they were in a good mood.
Hopefully you're not listening to this podcast from the side of the road because you have trailer problems. It happens to the best of us. It happens to all of us. Master Hitch. Scott Pinkley and the guys over at Master Hitch, they've been in business for more than 30 years, and they are behind you all the way. See what I did there? We're talking about everything you can possibly imagine. Towing equipment, fifth wheels, goosenecks, towing accessories, cargo carries, bike racks, wiring and electrical, and of course, boat trailers, trailer parts, 713-974-4440, 713-974-4440 or masterhitch.com. Well, I mean, it could be as simple as that. You had me scared there for a second when you said full moon coming up, and I was like, oh, that's not the same weekend as the feeding frenzy. It's not. It's September 7th is the full moon. So we should be good that weekend if anybody comes down and wants to fish. We got the Freedom Boats tournament that morning as well. All right, so Caleb, you are our content master. You keep your finger on the pulse of content and stuff that's out there, etc. And I'm going to start with you, even though I think Scott and Dean might have a little bit more insight on him. But before there was fishing content, there was fishing television shows that you waited for. There was fishing magazine articles that you waited for. And there was Flip Pallett, who passed away last week. And I called him the first true pioneer of savoring fishing, not just stacking fish. I'm wondering if all three of you guys, we'll just go around the horn here. Thoughts, if you had any, cross paths with him. And I really think, obviously there's more resources now for content, and there's also more reason for people to put out bad content. And I'm going to start with you just on him, if you ever cross paths and what he did for the industry.
I didn't grow up watching much fishing on TV. I'm quite sure he walked past me at ICAST and somebody said, that's Flip Pallett, and that's where I even learned who he was. No disrespect by any means. I grew up watching Bill Dance because it was
a different
funny.
generation.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I don't know a lot about the fella. He seems like somebody that I'd want to go back and read up on a little bit after reading, the things that he's done in the business. But I didn't know much about him.
But Scott, you get my gist here. The gist of what I'm saying here. You learn. I'm sure you learned, a lot just from watching TV before you really started digging in.
Flip's a great guy. I got to meet him several times. Got to hang out with him. Him and Lefty Cray at one of the fly fishing shows grilled me on redfish on Texas coast for 30 minutes. Good questions. I mean, good solid questions. They were genuine. They weren't just BSing. They just really genuine good guys. His show was different, and him and Jose Wahebe, they both had that same style of show where they talked a whole lot about the area and the environment and the people, and it wasn't just strictly about the fishing, and it made you want to go to those places. It made you want to be there. It wasn't all, like you said, stacking fish. It was techniques and why are we fishing here, kind of like what we do, and just like I said, Flip was an awesome guy. He talked to Collins about him. Collins is really good friends with him.
Yeah.
And he said Flip would go out every morning. He lived out on the edge of the woods in South Florida, and he would talk to the turkeys every morning. He would just go out and sit and talk turkey.
Literally.
He was truly a true outdoorsman. He lived it and breathed it. That's about the best way you can live. Going out fishing every day, hunting every day, walking through the woods.
Yeah. And I remember him, Dane, from Saltwater Angler, and just from a distance. I never got a chance to had the chance to meet him, but the conservation aspect of it, talk about ahead of his time, because that's the thing that really stood out to me as I'm kind of rehashing what he did. Because I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I was conservation minded when I started fishing and I was reading his stuff, but it kind of gets it in your mind,
I never met those guys personally, Jose Wahebe and Flip Pallet, but once upon a time, which this was probably before Caleb was born, on every Saturday on ESPN there were fishing shows every morning, and man, more than anybody, Jose Wahebe gave me a model to I just wanted to be that dude. I mean, his perspective of the environments, and just like Scott said, he had a huge segment in his show where he would sit on a beach or somewhere, and just you were there listening to him tell the stories about the fish and the experience of where he was fishing that week. And with Flip Pallet, the places, a lot of his were a little bit more exotic, around the Caribbean, a lot of different places. But yes, I idolize those people, and they are, I mean,
I think they affected the industry. I think they, the artificial lures and different tactics. I think they absolutely changed the industry.
Yeah, they were.
I mean, I was a bait, chunker.
Well, they were the best role models for, and the, I don't know what I'm trying to, just to represent the environment, to represent an attitude, and the way they represented fishing conservation ethics and the adventure that was out there. They immersed you in that environment when you listened to them talk, and it made you want to it made me want to be that guy.
Scott, I can't put my finger on this exactly, but I'll bet you I started throwing artificials because of those guys.
Yeah. It would surprise me if it changed a whole generation of folks over to that. They're just, both of them awesome guys, lefty right there with them. And Jose and I talked a long time about him coming down and fishing with me and doing a show in Galveston on the fall redfish. And we've been talking about it off and on. And I was out on the water, and Camille called me and said Jose's plane's down.
Oh,
and,
no.
He crashed in the Everglades. And that was a tough day.
Yeah. Well, so no pressure, guys. This is one of the reasons we started this podcast, to kind of with that same thought, not to compare ourselves, but with that same thought in mind, in terms of, helping people do it different, think about things differently. So, yeah, I definitely wanted to do that because, Caleb, I know it might have just bored you there for a second, but those guys just absolutely influenced me, religiously read the magazines. And, I think I'm pretty sure those were the guys that got me throwing artificials way back in the day, but wanted to do that. All right. So Caleb, you were talking about, if the wind's good enough to get out to the beach. Dane was talking about, various things here and adjust. I mean, Scott was talking about adjusting and getting to the fish, but a storm held them off. So here's the question that came up. Are we in tweener mode? And I like the term here, because here we are, September, water is still really, really hot. And I'll read you what my buddy, actually a different Scott, but my buddy Scott sent me. This is the time of year I never know where to go. I can talk myself into the bay, the channel, and the surf literally every day. Are we in tweener mode right now is what he said. I know the podcast guys have a better read on where to go because they're out there every day. But what would you recommend? And is that true where you really, there is, even for guys like yourself, Caleb, there's something of a guessing game, and you're kind of a slave to what the conditions are doing for you.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that the only month that I consider a tweener mode to be June. That's just because it's usually windy and miserable, and it cuts a lot of stuff out. But it would be the kind of fisherman you are. If you were Pat Gardner and all you really want to do is wait for trout, you could easily be in a tweener spot. Although he said the top water bite's been good, but if you roll with the punches and adapt and everything, then just about every time is the top time of the year for something. Right now, to me, it's the top time of the year for the surf. And if the wind won't let me out there, then my next fallback plan is deeper stuff with shallow edges, rivers, intercoastals, things like that. Early in the morning, I'll be sight casting down the edge of those things, and it's as good as it's going to be all year. And then if the wind's down, then the beachfront's going to be as good as it is going to be all year. So between those two things, I have something to go do every time. If I'm trying to talk myself into the bay or the surf, this time of year, it's the surf every single time. But that's the kind of fisherman I am.
But sometimes the wind is different.
If the wind's different, then I'm in a river, an intercoastal. I'm not fishing very shallow right now. And I'm not saying it's not any good out there, because we're doing a whole thing on AU tonight with Pat about how he's been doing well in top waters, and Pat likes the shallower water. But it just depends on the kind of fisherman you are. I like to catch just about anything, so I'll go after bulls and jacks. Somebody last week said the thing I can't understand with you is once you catch one of those big bulls, you cast back out there. And I'm like, this is what I love to do. So apparently there's other people that couldn't care less about it.
Go ahead, Scott, because you do have to be kind of light on your feet here.
Yeah, I mean, if the conditions are right, I'm on the beachfront. Period. End of story. I love being out there. We're chasing tarpon schools around today, and jacks, and everything's happening out there. All the baits out there. It's rip roaring. I mean, if you want to go out and catch Spanish mackerel, you can catch 1,000 Spanish mackerel in a day. I mean, they're literally everywhere you look. But on the days when I can't get out there, the wind's not right, conditions aren't quite right, there's nothing wrong with the bay. I took guys out there last week, and we whacked them pretty hard. I gave them the option. It was a good day to be on the beachfront, and they would rather go back there. A young man from Anahata Island in the British Virgin Islands. He had heard of redfish from my buddy who came down and brought him. And for his 18th birthday, he got him over here in the U.S. to go catch redfish. And so that's what we did. We went and found a bunch of schools of redfish, and they were up schooling up shallow. Everything was all good, sight casting to them. And a young man got.
I love stories like that. I love it.
He got 6 or 7 reds, but he's heard Walker talk about those redfish for years. Because Walker fished with me forever in Galveston before he moved over there to BVI. And so that's what that kid's caught tarpon. He's caught jacks. He's caught the big fish. He works on a charter boat. He's done all that, but he had heard all that stuff about these shallow water reds and sight casting to them. He just wanted to go do it. So the options are out there, whatever you want to do. And we caught a couple trout just by happenstance while we were chasing those redfish. The trout are up shallow, redfish are up shallow. Everything on the beachfront's kicking off. Last week, there was nothing. The beachfront was dead. There was hardly bait. There wasn't hardly anything going on. I swear to you, September 1st, yesterday, it kicked off. And it was just like, hey, it's September. It's time to go. And everything went nuts.
How much have you had the blue water up in the jetties lately this year?
Not a lot. We've had really the deep green, pretty water, where you see down 3 or 4 feet. Last 2 days that the blue water moved in, like what Dean's had recently. And with that comes all the, the kingfish come into the jetties. Like I said, there was a kingfish today. It flew 6 or 8 feet out of the water chasing bait inside the jetties in the bay.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, just skying, right amongst a bunch of jackfish. And that doesn't get any cooler than that.
And this is the exact time of year that Kay got his cover shot where we were sight casting kingfish in 20 feet of water.
Right off the beach, right? Like not even very far.
We were maybe 100 yards outside of the jetties, but you could see 20. I think it was 26 foot deep. You could see the bottom, and that'll happen off and on. I may be going to play with it in the morning. Not sure yet. That'll happen off and on this month.
Yeah. So Dean,
I was cruising the beach today, and I glanced down. I was up on my tower, and I looked down, I could see the bottom, and I looked over at my depth finder, and I was at 17 feet.
Mm-hmm. Well,
that'll tell you how nice it is.
And Dean, we're kind of spoiled, although the winds messed it up until recent weeks with the blue water, but they're still there, man.
It's definitely still there, but yeah, we've had some windy days in the last 5 or 6 days, which kind of gave me the opportunity to go and try something different and start hitting the flats and looking around a little bit more. But yeah, like I said earlier, a couple of weeks ago, it's a short season, man. When they're there, you got to take advantage of it. And
but it worked out for you because you had that light bulb moment about, oh yeah, there's that one spot in September.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about it. I haven't been there in 10 years.
and it'll be interesting to see how this week plays out with coming up to the full moon and the tide the way it is. I mean, and every week is interesting. We sit here on Tuesday and we talk about last week and we talk about next week. And I mean, it's they're all have their own challenges. But as we get to the end of, man, when the calendar changes from August to September, I mean, my brain starts to shift gears. It's like, okay, summer is winding down and it's time to get into that season that we wait for.
Yeah. And I want to just do a little quick shout out to my guys here because this is a kind of a unique day. Scott literally is on his boat, as I mentioned, fished until just, drove 50 miles an hour to get to the marina, to the dock there. Dean fished all day long, but busted his ass to get here for the podcast. And Caleb, as he's talking about with the live audience here on YouTube, which you guys can do and watch every every Tuesday, his kid has a football game right after this. So shout out to my guys for going the extra mile, literally, to keep this podcast rolling. It makes me proud, and I'm using it as a kind of an entry point to remind people to get over there, and you can meet these guys and you can book trips, literally anytime, but you can meet these guys September 20th at the Feeding Frenzy. 377 RSVPs already. So we'll have more than 500 people there. And you can go to the group page and register, RSVP, and buy raffle tickets. I want to say, was it $13,000 plus already? And that's not a lot. I keep saying it. You got good odds to get that Freedom Patriot 19-footer all rigged out. But I appreciate what you guys are doing. So let's get to the next topic here. And this is one of those where it might be story time, which I always like, and that is explaining the inexplicable. I had somebody sending me some pictures of pompano this week, and I said, that's cool. And I just figured, he caught some pompano. He said, no, I caught him in about 2 feet of water in the bay. And then we talked about Dean's thing earlier, where the fish are in the absolute afternoon heat of the day. There's some really big schools of redfish. We saw Caleb's video, which is outstanding. I wish I could steal it, of the big school of redfish. I'm guessing that might have been a little deeper water, but this time of year, we're schooling like 3 feet.
3 feet.
That's what I'm saying. So I'll start with you. I mean, we got to explain the inexplicable here on some of these things, or is it just go back to that discussion we had with Dean? It's about tides and such, or do you still scratch your head sometimes?
I call Scott and we act like we know what we're talking about. We'll cope with it. I think we need to explain how the heck I remembered it was Tuesday on a 4-day work week.
No kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding. I actually even caught myself saying, oh, I can go to such and such after the show. I had to run an errand. And I was like, oh no, today's Tuesday.
You know what? I don't know that we can't explain 99% of the crap that happens in fishing, but we come up with reasons that make sense to us, and we talk about it real confident, like.
But it works. We get texts all the time. Hey, I did what you guys did on the podcast.
Yeah, no. I got a text this morning, just like on such and such video, and we caught fish. So, well, hell, that worked.
they fell for it.
Let's advertise that video.
Yeah, but the Scott, I want to get some stories here. Maybe some things that you guys have seen. Dean, you're after Scott. Okay, well, I don't know about that one. The pompano one kind of kind of trumped me a little bit there. You know, he said it was like in 2 feet of water, he was catching pompano.
Yeah,
In the bay,
they do it
in the bay,
Florida
by the
all
way,
time.
not on the beachfront, in the bay.
Yeah, I mean, they do it in Florida a lot. I don't see why they wouldn't come on in. And as you said that, it rang a bell. We caught a pompano yesterday on the jetties. Guy was fly fishing, throwing the baby tarpon, and had a little hit. And he brings it up as a little bitty baby pompano. And I never see small jacks. He caught a little bitty jack that couldn't have been a pound. I've never seen one that small. So, yeah, you just, there's no fences, man. There's there's no rules.
But there are tendencies.
Yeah, well, Lynn Smith was wade fishing on Community Bar one time here a few years ago, and he told me about it. And he was getting ready for a trip and wanted to check on the trout, and he went over there, was wading it, caught a couple trout, and he said, "I'll string a couple of them for dinner." And he had them strung up, and he's always watching for sharks over there. It's a notorious shark spot. And he sees a shadow coming down the edge of the sandbar, so he reaches down, picks up his stringer. This is pretty good ways up in the bay. He picks the stringer up and puts it over his shoulder, keep it away from the shark. It wasn't a shark. It was a damn kingfish. He said like a 4-foot long kingfish swam by him on a sandbar in the bay.
Jeez.
And he said there was no doubt it was a kingfish.
Yeah.
Eric, I think it was Eric Glass, was guiding down in South Bay and had a fly fishing guy. He saw his shadow coming. He's calling the fish out. He said, "Man, it's coming fast and it's big, and I don't know what it is, but cast to it." You know, I have no idea. And they're in like 1.5 feet, 2 foot of water, maybe. And the guy casts at it, it eats, and it's a Dorado, a big Dorado.
A Dorado?
On a grass flat.
That's cool.
That's one I've never heard of.
Explain that. I mean, there's no, like I said, there's no fences. You know, the fish don't know where they're supposed to be. And
but they know it's hot.
They get to chasing after some bait fish, and then they look up and go, "Huh, I don't know where I'm at.
I better turn around." I've done that in my truck a couple of times.
I mean, Caleb does it every day.
It would be a damn tired bait fish to have a Dorado run him all the way to the back of South Bay.
Or a really good in good shape. He's like a distance runner. Should be in the Olympics. So, Dean, the other part of that I thought about here, and this is just me, I guess maybe being weird or whatever, because we talked about the bluefin tuna, and that was on the beachfront, so that's a little different. But why don't we catch, because you and I were catching some trout the other day, a couple of weeks ago, and all of a sudden we got into some sand trout. Why don't we see sand trout mixed in with trout more often, with speckled trout more often? Or are they there? They were absolutely shoulder to shoulder. It was speckled trout, then sand trout, then speckled trout, then sand trout.
Those spoil islands along the ship channel is the place where that happens pretty consistently. The drop-offs, the flats that are along the ship channel within, a quarter mile or so, half a mile of the Corpus Christi ship channel, where you go and you normally expect speckled trout, that is one of those places where sand trout, and there's also a third species, there's a Gulf trout. It's much smaller, but those are mixed in very consistently in those areas. Why those sand trout and the Gulf trout never caught one on the flats, never caught one on the grass beds, but they tend to show up in mass along those like industrial areas, like around Ingleside, those rocks, those places that are lit up, dramatically at night from all the industrial lights. I mean, there's tons of them there. And another one, look at the snook that are at the jetties, that are consistently caught at the jetties, and they're never caught on the flats. And you can see it from there. So, I mean, I'm sure there's one that swims in every once in a while, but he manages to not get hooked. And then the mangrove snapper that, I got buddies of mine that are fishing along those channels, around those rock piles, and they target those snapper. I mean, they expect them to be there. And every once in a rare occasion, you'll hit one on the flats. I mean, they're aggressive. They slam a topwater, but, You would think that with the amount of them that they're catching in those channels that are right next to the flats, that occasionally you would see one on the grass beds, but they just a creature of habit. And that's actually, like Caleb was saying a minute ago, why do things work out for us? Fish tend to be habitual in what they do, and kind of so do we.
It's true.
yeah, you repeat what worked last time, and then you see how it works out in the end.
Let me give y'all a shot at what me and Scott do with this whole coping and talking confidently. Deductive reasoning here. I'm gonna say I know for a fact that sand trout don't like shallow water because you don't catch a lot of them on the flats of East Matagorda Bay. But go drift in the middle, particularly when there's shrimp running or something, and there are millions of sand trout scattered all about. So I think they don't like to be up on the flats. I think they like deeper water. I think they're incredibly a schooling fish. I don't think they like to get by themselves. I've never caught sand trout one or two at a time. When you catch them, you're just
this is true. Yes.
Yeah. So I think they like deeper water. I think they school heavily, and I think they're most catchable whenever there's small bait and a lot of stuff with schooling. And
go ahead.
No, go there, and then we'll go to snook next.
Okay, let's go to snook after this, because Scott, my question for you is this, and again, maybe I'm just being a little dense here. The sand trout are speckled trout without specks. They're the exact same fish. I mean, they are
Gulf trout.
Gulf trout. They look alike. They're shaped almost identical, and yet you don't see them. And so why aren't we catching them shoulder to shoulder like Dean and I were the other day?
Because they're Gulf trout.
Well, but no, what I'm saying is
golf.
but what I'm saying is we were doing it in some shallow water.
Yeah. Thank God they're not called Gulf of Mexico trout. We'd never catch them again.
that's era is over.
Well, we used to catch tons of them on the jetties at Galveston, and I haven't caught a true Gulf trout, in a long time. For those that don't know the difference, the Gulf trout looks exactly like a speckled trout without spots. Yeah. And we used to catch them at the rigs, the short rigs, within 3 or 4 miles of the beach. But it's been years since I've caught a Gulf trout. I don't know if they're just not in as good a shape as they used to be or what. And sand trout, they're a whole lot more like a croaker. They're more similar to a croaker than they are. They're not really a trout. But I don't know where the name sand trout came from. But we used to catch a lot of those just throwing bait along the edges of Texas City Dike, places like that, anywhere where there was a drop off, deeper water. So Caleb may be right on that as well. They like deeper water, and they're a tight schooling fish. You either find them or you don't.
So Caleb, snook, and I want Dean to weigh in on this one after you, because I'm convinced, again, maybe wrongly, but I'm convinced that there are snook in the bays, that it's just kind of hard to pinpoint where they are.
I think they're in there. I think they're a lot more scattered out, but the observations I've taken away from Texas snook and Florida snook now is they tend to like to be where there's fairly consistent current, and it definitely seems they like to be very close to deep water. Whether it be rivers, intercoastals, channels, they're in Florida. Now, granted, I didn't get a lot of time to fish the flats in Florida, but we did go doing a lot of driving around and looking, and it seemed like they were always near a channel. Over here, where I find them in groups, is near a channel, near deep water. So I think that the snook on the flats, particularly in Texas, maybe they're just scattered out in their rarity. Scott and Dean would know more about whether they like to get up on the actual flats in Florida, but also the flats in Florida that can be 5 feet of deep of water, and they call it the flats.
Yeah.
So and there's a lot more there's raging tide on those flats in Florida too, that is, quite different than our currents here.
The snook I've observed loiter. They just hang out. Whether
they like structure,
under a tree, under a dock, in a rock in the jetties, they just kind of loiter.
They love structure. They tend to hang around those things. Man, My buddy Aaron Reed, he wrote a book about snook. He was another interesting dude that I crossed paths with over the years, and he was the one that I spent a lot of time with targeting them at the jetties. And if you go walk those rocks, and if you really stick close to the rocks with small soft plastics, I mean, they are there to be caught. We fished the Packery jetties a lot, walking on the rocks, and during the most raging tide, windy, violent days is when they seem to be the most excited. I mean, that was when they were more likely to hit. A lot of theories. Is it the turbulence they like? Is it the turbulence that conceals your bait a little bit better, that they're kind of careless, that gets them to hit better? And why that happens. But I mean, they are there, but they also disappear in the winter. And then, okay, and as soon as we say they disappear in the winter, during the big freeze,
oh yeah,
then we saw how many were there because they floated.
yeah.
How could there be that many floating and nobody catches them?
Yeah.
It's kind of unusual
We
Have
concept there.
don't
you ever-
fish for them.
That's kind of what Dean's saying. Go ahead, Scott.
That's the answer to it. I mean, we don't fish for them. In Florida, we fish for them. We're throwing to structure. We're throwing under the trees. We're throwing to docks. We're doing all that stuff. We don't do that here in Texas very much. This little area that I'm sitting in right here, where my boat's docked, there was a kid that hangs out there, or he works at one of the shops there in Port O'Connor a few years ago. He caught a 32-inch snook out of here, fishing at night around the docks. I mean, I think there's more snook around than we realize. After the big freeze, there was a couple guys went out. They picked up 10 snook that were 30 inches and bigger, right here in Port O'Connor. So there's snook around. I just don't think that we target them. We don't throw at the docks in the structure that they like, and they want current and they want structure. You sit there and watch them in Florida when there's no tide in between tide changes, and they just sit there. You can throw anything you want to in front of them. They are not going to eat it. I've done it. I did it a lot. And as soon as that tide starts moving, they start feeding.
Yeah.
They want moving water, and they're an ambush feeder. If you think like bass, think what you'd do for bass fishing if you're fishing structure for bass, and then you can catch some snook. Yeah.
We target them pretty heavy.
With what kind of result?
Me and some buddies. It goes all right. I think that there's hot areas and there's not hot areas. Usually whenever you find them, you can catch several out of there over the course of time, right? Like over the course of a week or two, you can catch them. But I might have to start flipping docks somewhere.
Yeah. Well, you both kind of answered my other little follow-up here is, if you were to target them, have you ever found any consistency, any pattern? I'm guessing just the docks and the jetties and stuff.
Well, it's just like Scott was saying, skipping it underneath trees and stuff around structure, because they are. And I think that's the reason I like redfish, bass, and snook so much, is they're all kind of the same thing. It's just different outcome, right?
Well, I mean, Scott, have you ever been able to pattern
snook I've caught in Texas? Yeah, the biggest snook I've caught in Texas was throwing at a dock. Down in the Brownsville Ship Channel, I got one that was a little over 30 inches that was hanging out. And it was one of those spots, as we were using the trolling motor going by it, I looked at that spot and said, there's a big snook there. It just had that look. It was a corner of a dock, and it cut back, and there were some rocks around it, and the tide was moving past it. It was perfect setup for snook. And just like being in Florida, I flipped it in there, and this thing came raging out and ate. Biggest one that I had take a swipe at my lure was right here on the Port O'Connor jetties. There's a rock out there that kind of has fallen off and sits by itself right near the end of the jetties. I call it Snook Rock because I was throwing at some baby tarpon and had a gigantic snook come swimming out of the rocks trying to eat my fly, and he missed and went back. That cost me about, I don't know, 15 or 20 flies because I threw them all in rocks after that. The next day, it cost me about $100 in conventional tackle because I threw all kind of stuff into those rocks trying to get him back out of there. They're creatures of habit. They I've seen snook in Florida in the same place 2 and 3 days in a row. It wouldn't surprise me if that snook doesn't just live in there.
Man, now I'm getting the itch. Go ahead.
There was a spot there in Florida we caught. Well, we landed 2 over 40 and caught another 2 that we never stopped, and it was just different days, same damn spot. And it's like Scott was saying, that looks snooky. There's a snook there, and 75% of the time over there, we were right.
Yeah. The only snook I've ever caught have been on jetties. The only ones. But now you got me thinking about stuff for sure. You've heard Mark Nichols on the podcast, and you know he's caught more fish and changed the fishing game like few others. Mark and DOA Lures have everything you need and want on the water. That's what we use. DOALures.com is the website. Of course, you got the classic DOA shrimp, but top waters as well. I'm a big fan of the PT7. You see us using that all the time. That is DOA. Get to a retailer near you. They are all over. Or go to DOALures.com and be sure to listen for Mark Nichols on this podcast. They have revolutionized the fishing industry and they keep doing it. DOALures.com. All right, before we get to what would Scott do, what would Caleb and Dean do, interesting question here. And we have listeners that do all kinds of fishing, and whether it's camping, obviously jetties and piers and such. So the question came up about channeling our younger selves when we did mostly that. We didn't have boats and kayaks and all that good stuff. The question was about fishing parks. And actually, I want to give a shout out to the Lower Colorado River Authority. Their parks are outstanding, and you should pay attention to them. I actually have a video on the YouTube channel here that you can get some more information on that. But they're donating. Donating a bungalow. Actually, it's for your trips, Caleb. Cool. They're going to be able to stay at the bungalow for a weekend, fish with Caleb. That's going to be one of the auction items at the feeding frenzy. So I want to give them a shot. They were really nice people, really good, and are donating that and want to be a part of it. But let's talk about Goose Island. Now, maybe some of you guys, see, I grew up on the boards and the rocks and, wading and all that. I think you guys had boats well before I did in your lives. I didn't get my first boat till I was in college. But I know you did this some, and I'm actually going to start with Dean on this one, and then Scott, then Caleb, simply because we're talking about Goose Island, Galveston Island, Sea Rim Park, and then, like I said, some of those LCRA parks, jetties and rocks. What are your thoughts, and if you had to point someone in those directions, what they should do, Dean? What they should be looking for, what they should be doing?
Well, I mean, number one always is look for bait. I mean, if you get some signs of life, things getting chased around, pushed around, I mean, if I'm sitting there looking at water that's just inactive, and I lose interest real fast. So, I mean, try to time it with the moon, before the full moon, current, tide, bait fish. That's the most obvious, easy way to narrow down your search.
Scott, one thing I tell people, because my son likes to just go anywhere, and I'll tell him this since he was 10 years old. Don't feel compelled to go to the end of the rocks. Don't feel compelled to go to the end of the jetties, because you're better off really just taking a short stroll into the shallow second, third bar or whatever, and go from there. People, I think we're just conditioned. I got to go out there where the big fish are. I got to go into the deep water. That's not true.
If you watch, everybody that's in boats is throwing up to the rocks. And everybody on the rocks is throwing as far as they can get away from the rocks. It never makes any sense. But I spent literally probably thousands of hours walking up and down the jetties in Galveston, the North Jetty mostly, some on the South Jetty. That's a little sketchier. Water gets over the top of it quite a bit, and it's a little slick. The little rock groins off the seawall, they're money. There's always some really big trout caught off those rock groins. You think about the way the tide moves, or the way the water moves there, the waves come in and then it goes up against the side. There's a reason they say don't swim around those. That's where the outflow is. That's where that undertow is. That undertow is what you want to fish. You can go to any of those places and chunk lures all along there. And I would say get down on the lowest rock that's safe and throw parallel to the jetties. Don't worry about throwing out, way out farther. The fish are up there against the rocks. Same thing, Texas City Dike. I don't know how many hours I spent on Texas City Dike, just going up and down that, junking lures, but also that's great, great place for bait fishing.
Mhm.
You can catch all kind of stuff on Texas City Dike. As far as parks go, I waded in a lot at Galveston Island State Park, and you go back there in the back end and wade those coves, catch all the redfish you want. It's all grass back there now. It used to be a big trout area. I don't know so much about that, but wintertime, you wade some of those muddy coves along the Galveston Island State Park, and that was where the big trout were. There's every park's got that has water access. If you just want to take the kids down there, get you some shrimp, go down there with a popping cork, go down there, throw some on the bottom. You're going to catch some. You're always going to be able to catch something.
To this day, and I'm proud that I've been able to eclipse the 30-inch trout mark a few times, but to this day, the biggest trout I ever saw caught when I was a kid. My father probably caught, didn't measure it, didn't weigh it, 35, 36-inch trout, maybe bigger, that would look like it was the width of a basketball. I will never forget that day, and he caught it in probably, Caleb, I don't know how much of this you've done, that's why I wanted to just check with you, probably about 6 inches off the bottom piling on a Bob Hall pier, right near the shoreline. And it was just like the most incredible. I could still see him lugging that trout. It was like one of those that came up during the freeze in Matagorda. It was one of those.
Dang. Yeah, that'd be cool. No, I mean, I really like Scott's answer. I've walked in around the jetties a couple of times in Matagorda, like way long time ago, and did pretty stinking good there. Caught some big trout and some, I say big trout, like 25 inchers, stuff like that. But I don't have near the experience. I've never been as poor as Scott was whenever he was.
Or as me.
Well, I wasn't poor. I was just eat up with it. I took a job in Galveston. I lived in Houston, took a job in Galveston so that I could drive down there in the morning, walk the jetties, catch some fish, go to work. And then when I got off, I could go fish in the afternoon.
Yeah. I, on the other hand, was poor. Like, I'm not ashamed to say I was poor. There's no doubt about it. All right. What would Scott do? What would Caleb do? What would Dean do? Dean, it's holding on, man. Pretty good weather again. You open slate, I'm guessing, and I won't bore you guys to all repeat the same thing. But if you have anything to add, just let me know. Raise that finger. No, not that finger. But Dean, pretty open slate. Looking like the weather's going to be okay again.
Everything looks good in Redfish Bay for this week, man. Might dodge a little shower here and there. I mean, but when it's raining and it's not raining on my head, I love it. It's just weather is create some clouds, put some shade on the water. But it's good right now, man. We've beat that one up pretty good today. Whether you're going out to the jetties, the flats, we got great tides. The wind is good, man. School is the end of summer right now. There's no people on the water. There's nobody out there. So, that also helps the situation without people running around the flats. The fish are relatively undisturbed at the moment.
I will say the wind is a little flighty, Scott. You get the real low winds, but it doesn't seem to be all day long. All of a sudden, about 10 or 11 o'clock, or maybe before, maybe after that, the winds do pick up a little bit. May have lost Scott.
I think Scott went to sleep.
So the question is for you then, Caleb. The winds have been a little flighty. You'll get it dead flat but only maybe for 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah, no, I'm my report is a lot like Dean's. However, I think tomorrow morning the surf will be laid down pretty good. But I'm looking at the tide, and the tide comes in until about, give or take somewhere around 9-10 o'clock, and then falls right back out. Because you're playing with tides and you're playing with wind now to get those days. The fishing in front of the passes can be absolutely great unless for some reason it's dirty inside the bay. Then you're going to get some outgoing stuff. And if you're trying to fish tight to the pass, that water's going to get real dirty real fast. So there's a lot of variables to make it work for you out there.
Scott, you're back with us. I'm guessing you heard me. I don't know if we couldn't hear you, but Shorter windows on the good low wind for the beachfront. It seems like.
It's blowing a little bit overnight, but the daytime, tomorrow I've got a 0 on the wind at 9 o'clock. So yeah, that's going to be pretty kind of flat. Today it slicked off like a mirror out there today for a while, and then those little storms popped up and they started drawing some wind, and it got a little bumpy, little chunky out there for about maybe an hour, around the storms, and then it flattened back out again. The wind has been more storm related for me than it has. The consistent wind, if the storms aren't around, it's been less than 10 miles an hour all day long.
Good deal. Caleb, I know you need to go get a W tonight is it Needville Middle?
Yes, sir.
So we're going to let you go. But don't forget to book our guys. You know where to reach them, or reach me, and I'll get them your information on the group page. And don't forget to subscribe, of course, and join the Facebook group page. That's where you can go to get all the stuff you need for the Feeding Frenzy. It's closing in on us. It's September. We're talking 18 days from now, so it's going to be a blast. Don't forget to book them. You guys have a great week, great weekend. Catch them up. Talk to you next time.
Hey, Scott, when them manatees blow Dean up, does it make him talk faster, or does he just stay right there?
He gets real quiet.
Oh, shit. It is bad.